allergens and have a chance to. Are we streaming now?
We are getting ready to go live.
Okay.
We are live. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and potential new Toastmasters. Thank you for joining us on Wake Up with Toastmasters. My name is Ken Richardson. I am the District 115 Club Growth Director. And with me today is my co-host, Distinguished Toastmaster, past District Governor or District Director. I have to get used to saying that. Phyllis Tribby, how are you this morning, Phyllis?
Good morning, and I still am not used to it. So Governor is great with me.
I know. Well, I'm going to try and get director in my brain, but I do slip now and again. Our guest today is Irene King. Hi, Irene. How are you doing today?
It's early.
It is early indeed. Well, to get us started off, I'd like to ask you, how long have you been a Toastmaster?
That is really not a straightforward answer because I first joined Toastmasters actually in 1992. And I was a member for a couple of years after I moved to Las Vegas in 1994. And because of an ill-advised marriage, cautionary tale, I was out of Toastmasters for a while, and I joined again in 2007, off and on. And actually, I think I've been steady since about 2007. I haven't lapsed at all since then.
Well, what attracted you to Toastmasters in the first place? Why did you join?
Actually, my SO, my significant other, encouraged me because he was a member of Toastmasters at the time. He's also a DTM, and even though he lives in California, he's still a member of our club. And he encouraged me to do so because in order for me to expand my professional abilities, he said, learning to speak better is going to be the best thing that you can do for yourself. And he was absolutely right. And Toastmasters was a big reason. Well, what I learned from Toastmasters was a big reason why I was hired at Clark County and was there for 27, 28, however many years.
Interesting. What did you do at Clark County?
I was a teacher. I was not with the school district, but with Clark County proper. I was an instructor. Beginning with technology, business applications, and I went back to school for psychology, and then they put me in soft skills. Essentially, I was a Jill of all trades. We need somebody to teach this. So I had to develop courseware and classes and presentations and be able to do it. I actually paid out a Marine to get my job because he was essentially a drill sergeant. You will learn this. And I was Toastmaster soft and squishy, so I got the job.
Excellent. Now, I know that you're retired, so what keeps you in Toastmasters?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said, I know that you are now retired.
Yes.
So what is it that keeps you in Toastmasters?
Although it's not my job, I am still instructing. I currently have a class that I'm teaching at a retired active adult community.
I like that.
And I like keeping my skills up, and Toastmasters is the best way. And because I am doing this, I'm also looking at possibly going after the accredited speaker designation. I'm thinking about it.
That'd be great.
Yeah, it would be great. Go ahead, Phyllis. You have some questions there for our guest?
Well, I'm just thinking with all of your training, I've not seen you give a class in District 115. What class do you think you would be best to teach if you were offered the chance to to teach at one of our TLIs or this enrichment program on Saturdays?
I'm not sure. And that's why I haven't really taught one, because I'm not sure what I would teach. I'm not sure if my practical everyday experience outside of Toastmasters would necessarily be helpful. I've thought about it, but then you guys get these great keynote speakers and I'm going, oh, I can't do that. So I really don't have an answer.
Well, yes, you can do that because somebody asked me to do it and I did it and was not a problem. Like, okay, stepping out, doing something you're not used to. But I have seen you in many contests, and I think preparing for a contest might be a good training session for you to teach. How do you prepare for your contest? Which one is your favorite?
The best way that I can answer that is I think about it. Do I want to try fill in the blank contest? My favorite is humorous speech. The way I prepare for it is that, once again, I go back into my cautionary tale of a life and pick some random event and turn it into a speech. It's really helpful because, one, if I can laugh at it now, then I think it's funny. Because it happened to me, I'm not all that worried about forgetting something. And because it happened to me, I am not concerned about whether or not I am going to be dinged on possible plagiarism. It's always going to be original. And I would have to say humorous speech is my favorite. It's the one that has taken me the furthest whenever I have entered a contest and gone on into the district level. And I have a 3rd place district win on humorous speech. I've tried the others, but that has always been my most successful.
I would agree with you. I always said I thought I had a little already in me that was humorous, that I am able to take facts and rearrange them. So what I've done in the past for my most recent speech is I found a situation in my life and I added all kind of things that never happened, really didn't happen, but they were funny situations that worked with the speech. So I think you're right. In the mind is where you prepare a speech. And once you get it in the mind, then the voice starts coming and the ad libs and you learn and practice it. So it's a great thing. You really didn't tell us about your clubs. Do you belong to more than one club? And what clubs do you belong to?
I belong to Star Masters,
Mm-hmm.
and I belong to Grand Central.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the 2 that my retirement budget will allow me to join at this time. Although there's 2 others that I am considering, and one is the Wine Club with Bill Berenger, and the other one, and I don't know if they have chartered yet because, and I'll tell you why in a minute, and that is the Authors Club. And that is kind of important to me. So those are 2 that I want to join. But with the recent increase, relatively recent increase in dues, I have to pick and choose. And Star Masters and Grand Central are 2 where I know people and I'm more comfortable with them, especially Grand Central, because we met right there across the hall from where I work. So
Got to have a little bit of ease to get to the club meetings.
yes.
I find in my 2 clubs that we are not charging any club dues because we're not meeting live and we're not buying the materials that we bought before because we don't have the presentations we had before. So really, all we have now is just the dues for international.
Right.
What I think what you'll find after a while with retirement is it's surprising how you can live and save money on Social Security. It always amazes me that I can manage anything I want to.
Well, I will jump in here and I will tell you that yes, authors and aspiring authors has chartered, and they are meeting regularly on Friday evenings. Let's see, I think it's 6 p.m. If you want, I will send you an email. I'll double check that and get back to
I
you.
actually have them, and I have
Okay.
them on the schedule, and I've actually attended a few meetings. But like I said, I'm more busy now since I retired, it seemed, than when I had to get up every morning and go to work.
I understand that. I told my wife, I said, I didn't really retire. I'm still working. It's just now I don't get paid. I wanted to return back to something that you started talking about there, Bill's Club, Bubbling with Joy, that does wine tastings. Now, you have a particular set of skills of which I am extremely envious. You are a sommelier. Did I say that correctly?
Close enough.
It's a tough word for me. Tell us about that. What led you to that? At first, you might want to say, what is a sommelier? Sommelier?
Sommelier.
Sommelier. Thank you.
My wine journey, I'm considering putting into a speech of some sort, but I haven't figured it out yet. I'm not only a sommelier, but I am a wine and spirits education trust, intermediate with distinction. And actually 2020, I was going to go to the next level. And then 2020 happened. And that would have put me 2 levels down from Master of Wine. So I know a thing or two about wine. In addition, I'm also a cork specialist through the International Cork Association, but I got that many years ago, and it was more as a lark than anything else.
I didn't know there was such a thing as a cork specialist.
Yes.
What is it that a cork specialist does?
Well, what it was is that I educated myself as much as I could in the different types of closures of wine. It used to be you pop a cork. Well, through a whole series of events that happened through the 90s and 2000s, popping a cork wasn't quite the same. And relatively new wine regions such as New Zealand, because it's so hard to get corks there, they opted to go screw cap. Well, that just said all kinds of.
It's not a real wine with a screw cap.
Not real wine if it's got a screw cap, but there are really good wines that are closed with screw cap. However, people's perception is that the better the wine is closed with a cork. And many very high-end wineries still only close with a cork. The reason why they have gone, the royal they, have gone to screw caps and artificial corks, synthetic corks, which is a little bit different, it's semantics, is because of something called TCA. It's a type of, I'll just call it a bacteria that lives on cork, that if it is not removed, it can taint the wine.
I see.
And I did a big study, and I did a 7-part write-up about the superiority of corks and how it's longer and more complicated than it needs to be, but it got the attention of the cork people. And so I got the certification. Plus, I'm a California wine appellation specialist. There's probably a couple others in there, but. Yeah.
So you are truly the wine lady, the expert to whom we need to address all of our questions about wine. Is that correct?
That is very true. And if I don't know the answer, I can come up with something plausible.
Well, I'm going to have to come visit your clubs because I can just imagine all kinds of speeches about different kinds of wines and the different wine regions. I mean, you're such a wealth of knowledge in that area, in that arena, that you would have speeches sort of ready-made based on your avocation for many years. Is that accurate to say?
I think so. I think so. And by the way, for those of you who are active adults, I am teaching a wine class every odd month at Ardiente in North Las Vegas. So I don't know if anybody's there, but they can contact somebody to contact me, and I can get the information of the people who are in charge.
Okay, Ardiente, now where is that? I'm not familiar with.
It's in North Las Vegas.
And is that a wine store? Or?
No, Ardiente is a community. Ardiente is the name of the community. It's not Aliente. They're Ardiente.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking. Aliente.
No, it's not Aliente.
Okay, very good. Well, if people want to get in touch with you, they can go through me. You can see my Gmail address there for the District 115. It's d115cgd@gmail.com. Now, the other question I wanted to go back to, having to do with your Toastmasters journey, is I know you've been a club leader. I know you've participated in contests, and you have, I think you were an area director at one point, weren't you?
Yes, that's the only way I could
Get your
get
DTN.
my DTN.
So
And I was able, and I had a President's Distinguished area.
Awesome. What office do you think at the club level is the most challenging, or the one that you like the most, and why?
Well, that's not the same thing.
I know. I wanted to switch gears. I'm going to get to the area director thing in a moment, but I would start at the club level and see what your response was on that.
At the club level, the president to me is the most satisfying, especially since you are in a position to whip everybody into shape. My leadership style had been compared to Al Capone by one of my members. The most challenging club position, I think, is definitely vice president of education. Anyone who can do that, I mean, a genuflect, because it is easily the toughest, in my opinion.
Now I'm going to ask you about your venture into district leadership as an area director. Tell me a little bit about that. How did that go for you?
Somehow I ended up President Distinguished, and they still don't know how. The good thing that I liked about it was that it gave me an opportunity to really go and pay attention to what other clubs were doing, to be able to give, not necessarily advice is not the right word, sometimes recommendations. That maybe you want to do this and maybe you want to do that. I got to work closely with the club officers, and with my distinctive Al Capone style, apparently it worked.
Yeah, that's quite an accomplishment. Go ahead.
I know. I still laugh at that. And everything turned out well. The best thing was being able to visit. The worst thing was having to put on a contest. And not being able to participate.
I know exactly what you mean. If you were to speak to younger and not younger, but less senior, I should say, Toastmasters who are considering leadership positions, but we have a lot of folks that I've talked to and I said, hey, why don't you become an area director? And they're like, oh, no, that's too much responsibility. What advice would you give them?
Do it.
Yes.
And that's, I think when you get into leadership, you learn more about the guts of Toastmaster and how it works, because you are put in a position where you have to look things up, you have to study. You spend a lot of time on the Toastmasters website learning these obscure things that you never even knew about. And because this is your particular journey, not everybody in your home club, for instance, may know these things. Knowledge is power. And when you get involved in district leadership, you get more power. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about here. I'm talking about brain power. I'm talking about knowledge. That doesn't mean that you're going to go around and, beat up people.
What are some of the little things that you learned that you didn't know that you would like to share?
One of the things that I learned is that volunteering is kind of a given. If you're a Toastmaster and you're asked to volunteer, just say yes. I asked a lot of people, will you do this? And you could see they wanted to say, oh, hey, no. But they said yes. That was one thing. And other things are just, you're digging deep into what is the foundation of Toastmasters. And that's really hard to put into words, but you retain it somewhere inside. And that really helps you see Toastmasters in a whole new way, because you've gained more knowledge and power, you've gained more information, and that's something no one can take away from you.
Very insightful. Phyllis, do you have some more questions for Irene?
Well, I was going to commend you for asking first. I always waited for volunteers, and you soon learn they cannot say no to a direct question and sit back and not raise their hand.
Right.
I'm listening to you and I'm thinking you would make a wonderful club coach. I know you've had some training because I did that.
Yes, and I've done it.
Yes.
I've done it. And that was the last thing I needed to do for my DTM. In fact, it was Della Croce. And at Della Croce and I were both club coaches for a company club.
Mhm.
And it was really amazing. Once again, it's something you learn about how to take your leadership skills and your experience. You realize when you're doing something like that, because by the time you get to that point, you should have some sort of solid Toastmasters experience behind you.
Yes.
But when you're doing something like being a club coach, you can drag that information out and help people who are either in a new club or who are struggling for members. And it really helps. Of course, all of this I'm saying is based on live in-person meetings, which we haven't had 100% for a year. Right now, I don't know exactly what I would do, but I do know that that was a great experience. And don't take this as a volunteer situation, but I wouldn't mind doing it again.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to do.
I know, I could tell.
Say, can we put you on the list as possible club coaches, because we need many.
I would like to do it, but I have to tell you, I would prefer to do it in person. And right now, because of my time frame, I don't have time for that, because earlier we were talking about two new clubs. One, the wine club, well, obviously.
Yes.
And the second one is the author club. I have finished my first novel.
Oh,
In the proofing and editing process, and then there's the marketing, blah, 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 blah process. It has surprised me how time intensive that is. I will have more time after the first book is out, but I have about 4 lined up behind it.
Wow. Can you tell us what
Nice.
your first book is about?
It's a romantic novel.
Ah,
And it's based here in Vegas because what? I've been here for almost 30 years. I know a thing or three.
Well, I can see we're getting a little bit short on time. We're at 6:25, so we want to have some time for announcements. So Irene, is there anything you would like to conclude with for our audience?
Volunteer. That's the most, for me, that's the most important thing for an experienced Toastmaster to do, is to volunteer. Their contest needs judges. They need, please volunteer for a contest. If you are not competing, just put your hand up and say, hey, I will do whatever. Now, the last international contest, I crapped out early on. Well, the last international contest that I participated in, I crapped out early on, which had a weird side story to that. But that would be the thing that I would tell everybody: just get involved, just volunteer. And that is the most important thing you can do to help Toastmasters and to help your fellow Toastmasters succeed, and yourself.
Very, very good words of wisdom. Thank you, Irene, again for being our guest today. Phyllis, anything you want to wrap up with?
I would say that it'll be a fun meeting that Irene is in, and if you'd like to join her at any time, please check out Star Masters and Grand Central. She'll be there to set your meeting in great shape.
Well, thank you, Phyllis. Again, it's been a pleasure with both of you today. A couple of announcements. I want to remind everyone that our international convention begins on Monday, the 23rd. If you haven't registered, please do so. You can find an agenda on the TI website. Registration is simple, and many of the events are free. If you want to attend every event, including the World Championship of Public Speaking, it's $25, which is pretty darn reasonable. So give that some consideration. I also want to remind you that we have game night on the last Saturday of every month, although I think that our program quality director, Gene Williams, is moving that to this Saturday, the 21st, because of the national convention. You should be hearing more about that. We also have educational enhancement night. That's another event that our program quality director created. It's really a wonderful event. It's the second Saturday of every month, and you can attend absolutely free, no obligation, totally voluntary, educational programs of interest to Toastmasters. For example, we always have a new member orientation program. We have a basic introduction to pathways. Last week, we had a program on, I think it was on Meetup and on Facebook. We had a program on leadership. What does it mean to be an area director? So keep an eye out for that. And please join us. Wake Up with Toastmasters airs on this Facebook page Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 6:30. The host on Mondays and Fridays is our program quality director, Gene Williams. On Wednesdays, it's our public relations manager, Jennifer Smith. And Phyllis and I are here on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So thank you for joining us, and have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks again, Irene. It was great